We're going to go after the slideshow in this exercise, and we're going to run into some interesting results, which is going to give me ample opportunity to show you some cool tricks as we work through this. We're just setting up the area for now. We'll insert the slideshow a little bit later on. But in any regard, I'm going to go and drop this graphic in. Now, the graphic that we're going to use is actually from Flickr. It's a commercial-free Flickr photograph. But we have to make sure to give credit to the user, the Flickr user, who has provided this image in a commercial-free way. So we'll do that as well. And as I say, we're going to run into some interesting results as we work our way along. So let's dig into it here. What I'm going to do, first of all, is I'm going to head over to my HTML. So index.html. And I'm going to go and find my slideshow div. There he is inside the code down about line 30 for myself. And it's inside this slideshow where I want to go and insert the placeholder graphic that we're going to use for our slideshow. So I insert my cursor there. I'm going to go open angle bracket, IMG, space SRC equals, and then in quotes, type in Shodan, SHODAN. That's the name of the Flickr user. So I'm trying to give credit here by naming the graphic after the Flickr user. Shodan.jpg, as a matter of fact. And don't forget to close your quote and close your angle bracket. All right, wonderful. Go ahead and save up your HTML file and head back to your browser if you would and refresh. And there we go. There's our graphic there from Flickr user Shodan. And it looks great. It's a wonderful graphic. Really goes nicely with, of course, the look and feel that we're going for here. Here's the issue that we run into. This graphic looks great with the high resolution, right? I have my browser window scaled all the way out. But check this out. This is where things get interesting. As soon as I start scaling, and as soon as I break into the next media query, check out what happens to the slideshow. What happens is the slideshow actually breaks outside the layout over on the right-hand side. Check this out. If I keep scaling down, that whole graphic wants to be visible. So we have some layout breakage here, if you will. And even more interesting, check this out. If I keep scaling down to the next media query, the low-resolution media query, there's the slideshow there as well. And we had decided way back when that we didn't want a slideshow in our low-resolution media query. So we have some interesting results happening here, okay? And again, in the low-resolution device, the entire graphic wants to be visible. So again, it looks great at the high res, really looks nice, but it's the other two media queries where things really start falling apart for us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tackle each of these issues one at a time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to scale down the size of my browser window until I'm in the second media query. Tablet device, if you want to think of it that way. All right. So how am I going to fix this? Well, first of all, it's going to be CSS. So let's head back over to our external style sheet, style.css. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I'm in my medium resolution media query. This is important because there's nothing wrong with the high resolution device, don't forget. So there's no problems there. But the first issue that we want to tackle is related to our tablet view or our medium resolution media query. So make sure that's where you are. And let's see here. I'm going to do a couple of different things. First of all, I'm going to find my slideshow ID selector. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a new rule underneath this guy, tucked in underneath this guy, and I'm going to call him # or hash mark slideshow space image. So in other words, I want to control an image if it appears inside the slideshow div. Now specifically, what do I want to do to this guy? Well, I want to force his width to be 100%. In other words, I want the width of the image to scale with the rest of the layout. Right now we have a fixed width image, and remember when we were previewing earlier, he wanted to show that maximum width, that default width. So let's see what we get here. I'm going to go ahead and save, and I'll head back to my browser, and I'll hide everything else here just for clarity, and refresh. There we go. All right, now we have a scaling graphic. In other words, if I start scaling my browser window, you can see that we now have a scaling graphic. Isn't that cool? So this is how we can create a scaling image. This is going to be important for your own projects that you get involved in. Having the graphics automatically scale so that they fit inside their layout containers. So that's great. However, we have another problem. And that problem is that the height is an issue. So in other words, I have this huge gap of white space beneath the slideshow. That's no good. And of course, the amount of white space beneath the slideshow graphic decreases as the layout gets wider and wider, or it increases as the layout gets narrower. So what the heck is going on here? Well, check this out. I'm going to go back over to my external style sheet. If you guessed that the problem is related to CSS, then you're definitely on the right track. I'm going to go and look for the slideshow ID selector inside the medium resolution media query. And notice inside this slideshow ID selector, you and I forced a height right there, a height of 300 pixels, pixels being a fixed value. So that's why the height is always being fixed at 300 pixels. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the height from the slideshow ID selector. And the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take the border from the slideshow ID selector. That's the sort of that mid-tan color that we had been using. Grab the whole property and all the values all the way down to the closing semicolon and cut them. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste that down into our new rule that we created, slideshow image. So in other words, I'm putting the border on the image, not on the slideshow div, if that makes sense. All right, go ahead and save up your work, head back to your browser, and when you're ready, go ahead and refresh. And now what we have is the scaling graphic with the border and no extra space underneath them. Awesome stuff. Isn't that nice? Perfect. Now, that solved the medium resolution problem. We still have the low resolution problem. Well, wait a minute. If I go all the way down to low resolution, there's the full width of the image appearing once again. And I go, well, hold on, wait a minute. I don't want the image to appear at all. How do I get rid of the image? Well, this is another opportunity for a quick CSS trick. Check this out. I'm going to head back over to styles.css. I'm going to head all the way up into my low resolution media query. And let's see, I'm going to find where the slideshow should be in my list of rules. You don't have to do it this way. You could put it at the bottom of the low resolution media query. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in # number sign slideshow. This is dead easy, but it's a very cool trick. I'm going to say display, :space, none. In other words, don't show the slideshow at all for my low resolution devices. Pretty cool. Head back over to your browser and refresh, and voila. Your graphics should disappear if you did indeed spell display correctly. There we go. So hang on a sec. Let me get mine happening here. There we are. Just like that. So if you can type and use a keyboard correctly and type out words correctly, you can have objects completely disappear from your layouts like so. But of course, once I start expanding this guy out, I'm going to see the different results that we get here for our slideshow. I hope you like the tricks that I was able to throw at you in this exercise. Pretty cool stuff.